Hi, it's Anna Runkle, also known as the Crappy Childhood Fairy. And if you've been watching my channel, you know that I talk again and again about the problem of dysregulation in the brain and nervous system when we have childhood PTSD. And the most powerful techniques I've ever learned for healing that come in a twin set of techniques I call the daily practice. It's a special technique for writing, followed by meditation. And if you've learned from me how to do that, I taught you this very kind of small, simple method of meditation. But the real form of meditation that I do is called Vedic meditation. And a lot of you have been asking about it. And if you want the daily practice to be the most powerful for you, you're going to want to hear this interview. This is my teacher, Paul Brown. He's been teaching Vedic meditation for many years, and he's going to tell the story. And I invited him on this call because the day that he taught me to meditate was a pivotal day in my life that changed everything. And I wouldn't be here without you, Paul. So it's my pleasure to introduce Paul Brown.
Thank you, Anna. I'm so happy to be here with you. Well, the day I learned to meditate, I was 21. I was in art school, the University of Iowa. I had been floundering before that. You know what it's like to be 20-something and not know what to do. And it was that era when all these rock stars and celebrities were going off to India to learn to meditate. And I thought that was totally cool. I really wanted that. And I spent a few years exploring the possibilities of substances, and I was rapidly realizing that they weren't taking me where I really wanted to go. And holy smokes, this woman, a friend of mine, went off to Berkeley to learn to meditate, and she encouraged these teachers to come to Iowa and hold a class and see what happened. I went to the lecture. I was stoned.
Does that work, meditating stoned?
No.
I didn't think so.
Anyway, went to the lecture, tried to understand as best I could what was being presented, and the fellow said, before I started meditating, my life was like an orange and I hadn't finished peeling it. And I kind of came to, and I thought, I want that. Went for my lesson, sat with my teacher, showed me how to do the whole thing. And honestly, I was bored and restless when we were doing the meditation together. Left the lesson. I thought, this is a flop. But I went outside and the entire world had changed. It looked so beautiful. You know, this growth, I just took off like a rocket. I couldn't believe how happy I was. So much brought me joy, and I fell in love with my friends all over again. And I couldn't stop talking about this miracle that had happened to me. It's like, you know, I didn't know I was going to be a teacher. And then one day I thought, the only thing that would make me happier was if I could be able to impart this technique to people. And I went to a 1-month intensive in California, which changed my life. My girlfriend said, I'm going to go to teacher training in the fall. Why don't you go with me? And I said, that's impossible. And holy smokes, the money showed up. And rather than being a junior at the University of Iowa, I was at an international training in Spain, and 1,300 other people. Just sort of happened. Pardon me. I feel like closing my eyes and just dropping into that quiet, beautiful, powerful realm just by talking about it.
Yeah.
And you'll experience that too when you learn to meditate. You just want to do it. Just talking about it just triggers something, doesn't it?
Well, when we switched on Zoom to start recording this, I said that to you. I said, oh no, Paul, I hear your voice and I just want to close my eyes and meditate. From doing it for years, I just have this like really good, comfortable, resty place inside, and I can just drop in now. It comes really easy to me. I still think all the time, true confessions, but it does the job, whether it feels
It does
like
the job.
perfect.
Yeah, well, the beauty of the practice is it works. It uses this natural aptitude of the mind. We're always looking for a more interesting experience. if you and I were sitting out at an outdoor cafe on a sunny day, and suddenly we hear some music nearby, and it's our favorite music, our attention just goes shoop, right over to that beautiful music. And the same with this practice. These quieter levels of the mind are there, they're more powerful, they're always operational, and we learn how to access those more powerful levels of the mind, and they're more charming. The mind wants to go in that direction. Yeah,
Love that word, charming.
charming.
People often tell me I can't meditate. I just think so much. I go, I think so much too.
It
Never end.
doesn't, yes. I've been teaching, oh golly, since 1973. And if I had a dollar for everybody that said I'm not going to be able to do this practice, it'd be stacked up in my living room. Um, it's a common fear. I won't be able to do it.
Yeah. So what do you notice when you teach people? What's that process like?
What I often notice is people come in, well, in the old days when I actually met with people in person, people come in a little bit nervous, a little bit excited. I listen to their stories and their issues, and I say, okay, now this will be better. We're going to be able to do this. Don't you worry. They sit down on my couch, and after they learn the practice, they just start to melt. It's like going on a 20-minute vacation. The mind settles down, body settles down, and it's perceptible if somebody's sitting there meditating. Oftentimes, head drops a little and the breath softens and whatnot. And then after they finish, they say the most remarkable things, or they send me a text a half an hour later. I taught a friend, and she texted me, I can't believe how good I feel. People are incredulous. We're so conditioned to thinking that all this stress and fatigue and angst is part of the daily life, and it's not. It doesn't have to be that way at all. We just
I,
wake up to something bigger.
a lot of people in the trauma world teach mindfulness, and I've checked that out because a lot of the research on trauma connects immediately to mindfulness. And I think that people teach it because it's simple, it can be taught quickly. But the thing about mindfulness that doesn't work as well for me, and I'm not knocking it for all the people out there who find it helpful, but what doesn't work as well for me is it requires a certain amount of effort that I have to like focus on my breath or try to like watch my thoughts or just observe them. And even stuff like watch, observe, and that sort of thing is more effort than I can do twice a day. And that's
Yes.
what I love about this technique. I really don't have to do anything. And that suits me just about right.
What you're going to experience in this process, in this meditation practice, it's totally effortless. No one wants any more effort in their life, right? I don't. 2020 has been enough of an effort. So we just have this ability. We're hardwired to be able to settle down, to drift down into that powerful, quiet, peaceful zone. Brainwave activity changes remarkably. If we meditated together, Anna, and we had an EEG done, it would be utterly apparent that we had entered a fourth major state of consciousness, unlike other states of consciousness. Waking, sleeping, dreaming have a distinct brainwave correlate and a distinct kind of physiology. When we learn how to transcend, as it were, fourth major state of consciousness, and the results might be a little bit more comprehensive.
I like to think of it as my brain heals. The effortless meditation is an opportunity for my brain to sort itself out. It just sorts itself out. And the less I can get in there and try to manage that, the better.
That's beautiful. Right. Sometimes I remember my teacher talking about trying to solve a problem on the level of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Einstein himself said problems can't be solved on that level. We
Mm-hmm.
have to rise to another level of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people come to crappy childhood fairy practices saying, but shouldn't I do a gratitude list in it? Or, can't I do this while I'm walking? And I just say, like gratitude and walking and all these good things we do are good. But while we're doing this daily practice, the meditation, what's different about it from other things you may have tried in other forms of meditation is that we're just letting the brain heal itself. And we're just, there's nothing we have to do. It knows what to do. It self-regulates. Some people have told me that sitting down and meditating can be very triggering and throw them into dissociation. And I know that that's the case for some people. And if somebody gets very distressed in meditation, no worries. You don't have to meditate. Nobody has to meditate. But for people with CPTSD, there's these hamster wheel thoughts that go on. And so I just had the good fortune to run into this woman who taught me how to write the thoughts that were bothering me, the fear and resentment, on paper, then meditate. And so some people, they just go right into meditation and it's great. Some people journal and it's great. But the technique that I teach involves writing the specific form of getting the fear and resentment on paper and then sitting down to meditate. And they go so nicely together, like peanut butter and jelly. And each one is enhanced by the other, because when I write my fears and resentments, it's kind of an active thing to start putting it down on paper, what's already here. And I'm going into some amount. I try not to make it effortful, and I teach people, like, don't overthink it, just whatever's there, any dumb thoughts at all, and you get it down. And then a little of it is out of the way, so that when I do sit down to meditate, second practice, there's just a little less, I've already cleared the way a little bit for the magic to happen in the meditation, which is when I get to rest. And I just find, I've come to believe my brain can heal itself on many levels if I just keep setting it up like that, giving it the opportunity. And I've noticed, like, well, when I met you and learned to meditate, I didn't have kids yet. And when I was pregnant with my first child, I remember going to your house for afternoon meditations together. And I used to meditate on the sofa pregnant.
I remember that brown velveteen pregnancy dress.
Massive. When I get pregnant, man, I get big. But both my kids kind of, gestated in daily meditation twice a day. And when they were born, they nursed with me in daily meditation twice a day. And then they used to come sit on my lap under a blanket in the morning while I meditated. They always grew up just loving that energy of mine when I'm meditating and basking in it. Then we help them learn how to do it. They do it. They write because when they want to, they're they don't have what I have. They're a little bit better off, and they do it when they feel the need. And who knows what will happen. But I'm telling this long story because what I want to say is, having little babies, I noticed that a newborn baby gets dysregulated. That's like they just get very dysregulated, and then you hold them and feed them and have skin to skin contact, and they pull together. So they're just like, initially they're just like, yeah. And I remember going, that's how I feel. That's how I feel when I need to sit down and write and meditate. Like the way that babies like tremble and they get rigid and they turn red. I'm like, I feel like that inside. And then they come together, and you use your body to kind of bring them back into regulation. And I used to think, oh, I'm at the breast of God. Oh. When I meditate, and I just get brought back together, just like a newborn baby kind of recomposes itself when cuddled and nursed.
I remember being at your house one day, and Jack was having a meltdown. He was about 7 or 8, and my father would have come over and whacked me, like, straighten up. And you just went over and put your arms around and just comforted him, and everything just settled down just like that. Lord, it was beautiful. So when we learn to meditate, we free ourselves from certain conditioning that we're not even consciously aware of most of the time. We come out of a kind of a prison. Yeah. And it's all based on this really beautiful, deep rest we get when we're meditating. The reason why we sleep is to heal the body mind to some degree. the rest we gain when we learn to meditate in this particular practice, so profound, deeper than any point, deepest sleep. A lot of repair work takes place. And it isn't like you have to put your attention on problems. It's just different. It's like the sun coming up. The sun comes up, the situation looks different when it's brighter out. If we're not stressed out, worn out, the situation looks a lot different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take this 20-minute vacation twice a day. Hey, life's different. I'm different. And you'll notice that people just start responding to you differently. You don't have to put your attention on the problem. My mom always had high blood pressure. She'd go to the doctor, taught her to meditate when she was retired, and she was tired and worn out. And she just came back to life. Her snap, crackle, and pop came back. And it was wonderful. And her doctor said, I don't know what you're doing, but every time you come in here, your blood pressure's closer to normal. What are you doing? And she said, I don't know.
I think you told me this once. Every attempt to try to describe it in words is always going to sell it short.
Yes, that's right.
It's something you have to experience. But actually, here's one of my favorite stories about you, Paul. Katie and I were meditating with you, and it was early after she had learned. And we came out of meditation, and you said, "How was that?" And I said, "I just was thinking the whole time. I even forgot I was meditating. I was thinking about money or something." And you said, "Mm-hmm." And Katie said, "I saw a vision of the Virgin Mary." And you said, "Mm-hmm."
Yeah, it's important to know that we don't meditate for the experience, the 20-minute experience. Whatever's happening, that's what's happening. People are pleasantly surprised at what happens to them. They can be so incredulous.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, we're just conditioned to think like, oh no, life's going to be hard, and I'm never going to recover from my childhood or my car accident or whatnot. And then this healing takes place.
Mm-hmm.
Nature wants to support us in what we're doing.
Yes. An analogy that I use is grass that's been kept under a tarp, or grass that's been walked on and has no water, broken old dead grass. And you just throw some water and sunshine on that grass, and it'll come back in the right form of grass. Like there is a true form of ourselves that's just ready to sort of come back and just come back. And that's how I come out of meditation. I'm grass.
Hey,
grass again. And it just keeps taking the form of grass. It takes the form of Anna. The other metaphor I feel when I do it is that life itself, it's like a lovely warm river where I float easily, and it just keeps carrying me forward, and there's a place to go, and I will go there, and I can struggle and thrash in the water and grab onto branches and things, or I can let go. But when you have CPTSD, you actually are in danger of succumbing under the water. You just don't have it. And when I write and meditate, I turn into something more free to just let go and enjoy that drift of life. Okay, here's another Paul story. I remember once, this was years ago, and you said, "You've changed a lot, Anna." And I said, "Yeah, I feel like I've changed a lot." And you said, "You used to be a serrated knife."
Oh, I did say that, didn't
You did say that. And I was like, yeah, it felt like that inside. It did feel like that inside. And I still return to that state very easily when I don't stay with my practice. That's my CPTSD. I didn't have I didn't know what it was when I met you, but that's what it is. That serrated knife. It's a anxiety around I'm going dysregulated. I'm trying to hold on here and not get all discombobulated and oversensitive and overreactive, and having to hold on like that. The daily practice of writing and then meditating gives me a way to that intense feeling and that intense thought has another channel out. It just has another channel out in it. If it can come out in a more gentle and relaxed way, then I can get back to just being my real self. It's natural. And this is all speaking to what you said about nature supports us in this process and coming and being restored to our whole nature. And that's what I think is the name of the game here. We're not just trying to feel better. We're not just trying to come up with a drug-free way to have an antidepressant. We're trying to become our real selves, like our funky, colorful, enchanted selves. Right?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. This growth we experience is so comprehensive and all-encompassing. We might want learn to meditate because, oh, I have this and I want this and I have this and I want this. But it's like when you water a plant, all the branches of the plant flourish. And about a dozen years ago, I found a poinsettia on the street, little tiny, and I brought it back in. I said, hey, you want to come in and live with me and meditate with me? You can. So it is about 6 feet tall now. It's turning red in the living room. And I snipped off a sprig of it and I pat it on a little table, but I was thrashing around earlier, getting ready, and knocked it over. But it just knew what to do. We set up the conditions correctly, enough water, enough light, some nutrition, and growth happens. And what we do in this practice is we're removing the obstacles to our growth of happiness, growth of freedom, growth of success. Everybody wants that. And it's possible, everybody. It really is.
Yeah, and growth of health.
Growth of health.
That's been a big
That's right. Because I've been meditating a long time, that means I'm older. Went to a new doctor, new family physician a while back, and she said, Mr. Brown, did you bring a list of the medications you're on? I said, no, there aren't any. Yeah, it's uncanny what we have to do to prop ourselves up to get through life nowadays. It's a tragedy. It doesn't have to be this way. Somebody came to me a while back, very stressed. I have insomnia. I'm at my wit's end. Said, well, let's just see. Why don't you just learn this practice? We'll see what's happening. And you come in periodically for a tune-up. And I don't know, a couple of months went by, and I don't recall this fellow's name, but I said, Hal, how's your insomnia? And he said, insomnia. It dissipated, distant memory. Oh yeah, I had insomnia.
Yeah.
I used to.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the things that have gotten better for me are when I first started asthma and
Oh yes.
chronic pain. I had back pain all the time and I had bad knees. They said I'd never run again, and that just resolved. And of course, PTSD. When I first learned to meditate, I could barely read or use a telephone. I was so dysregulated. So that just settled right down. And what I thought was ADHD, it was just dysregulation. And so my mind just meditation was like a stone just dropped down, and I just got this great focus back. And I say back because I think when I was a kid, I could focus. I think I was pretty good at that. And then later, I had some different health stuff going on. And in my case, like a lot of my major health stuff is somaticized. I think it tended to show up when I was in the worst sort of emotional situation. And so I got Graves' disease when somebody in my life relapsed on heroin and died. And I ended up with this terrible, wound that needed 14 major surgeries when I was going through a divorce. And so I was having these serious health problems, and they kept turning around once I got serious about my practice. And I'm not saying like, oh, every health problem you have, you can just fix it like magic wand. But if you have CPTSD and you tend to somaticize, which means to physicalize what's going on in here, and it is this is not woo-woo talk, it's well documented. People who had a high number of adverse childhood experiences, the intensity of adverse experiences is directly correlated with the frequency of physical problems like diabetes, obesity, heart disease, cancer, pulmonary problems, reproductive disorders, chronic pain. The list goes on to the point that there's almost nothing that isn't affected. And the older I get, the more it's clear to me that when you carry stress around in your body, all this stuff, like we might have like a gene kind of, but it won't get activated, maybe, or it will. Well, how do we increase our odds that it's not going to activate? We take the stress down and then let our cells repair themselves. So I figure even if meditation didn't make me feel good, it would be worth it just to protect my cells from all that stress that I tend to have.
Yeah.
I love meditating with other people. There's something about it.
Yeah.
And much to my surprise, it does feel like a group meditation, even on Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing can replace being in person and sitting with people in a living room somewhere.
That's right.
I really wanted you to come on here today and just talk more about it, because what happened was a few very dear people who are in the Crappy Childhood Fairy community had asked. I referred them to you. They learned, and I watched this transformation. And it's to me, like, I never like, I get better and I think, oh, it's just luck, it's just magic. And then when I watch somebody else do exactly what I did, and then all of a sudden they have a transformation, I'm like, holy dang it, that there's something to this. And so it really attracted me back. And I felt like I needed to say more openly and honestly, this form of meditation really hits the spot and works so beautifully in the daily practice. So if anybody's feeling like you can't really find your groove with it, or it worked at first, but it stopped working, I want to recommend, without pushing, that you check out this Vedic meditation. And because you can teach it online now, if they want to, they can. I'm going to put a link to your page down in the description section. So anybody who wants to can go look and see how, if they want to learn from you, they can, wherever they are in the world.
That's
And
right.
there are many teachers, I'm not trying to be like a hard sell person here, but just to be honest, I've never seen results like this. And I do know people who are very successful in other forms of meditation, but they tend to come to the daily practice already being very established in a form of meditation. So it's easy and natural for them to get into. If you're new to meditation, or it's not yet easy and natural ever, I just think this is it's a perfectly simple form, very simple. And you can do it holding a baby. You can do it. You can do it as a passenger in a car if you must.
That's right.
You can do it on. I used to do it on BART, which is the subway in San Francisco. I used to take it every day, and I was so just like, at loose ends all the time. But I couldn't get it together to get up early and meditate before leaving for work. But my commute had this perfect 33 minutes for me to write my fears and resentments and close my eyes. And I would go one stop backwards on the journey so that I could be sure to get a seat. And I was happy. And I was happy if I sat on the floor on that train and did it. And I've done that in many countries all over the world. I've done it in great cathedrals. I've done it in hotels. I've just done it wherever I happen to be. And that was one of the things you taught me. I was like, there's all this noise. And you're like, well, yeah, you did it in India with so much noise. And you just learn to meditate where you are, how to come back to your cozy place.
That's
wherever
right.
you are.
It's interesting too. Speaking of meditating in public transportation, I was on the Vancouver Island ferry a while back, and I'd already had my afternoon meditation. And a woman came in and sat down next to me, and we nodded at each other. And then she just sort of started to, settle in a little bit. I thought, I think she's going to meditate. And I could feel it. It was palpable what was happening. We radiate something when we meditate, and I could really feel it, and it felt so good. And people respond to us because what we radiate, what we are, we radiate, right? If we're happy and contented and loving, we radiate that. If we're stressed out and that woman looks like the edge of a serrated knife, I'm going to stay away from her. Yeah. So it's a beautiful portable technique. You can do it anywhere. We can be in the right place at the right time. Nature wants to support us in our desires, in our life. And we just, if we're stressed out, we can't think clearly, we can't make good decisions, we keep recreating these crummy patterns in our relationships, we hurt people when we don't want to, we can break free of that. The Vedic tradition is a wisdom tradition that comes from India. It isn't Indian in any way, it's universal. It just happens to have been carefully looked after in India, in the Himalayas, actually, far away from the world. My teacher's teacher was a great luminary in this tradition. His name was Brahmananda Saraswati. And there are 4 seats of spiritual learning that were established maybe 1,200 years ago. I'm not certain on this, but he was installed as the president of one of these seats of learning called Jyotirmath. So the knowledge has been there, the practice has been there, it just gets lost. In India, even in India today, very few people meditate. Middle-class housewives do yoga, but their conception of what meditation is, it hasn't happened quite yet. Yeah. So we could talk about the Vedic tradition, and it is endless. We've heard about Ayurveda, Veda, Vedic architecture, and I'm not an expert in any way on those other systems. I just know how to teach this technique correctly, and that's what counts.
I never figured out what it is the magic of a teacher is. It's very subtle. What you learn from the teacher is subtle, and that's why it's different, and why I've had to emphasize to people where I teach this thing, just like close your eyes and rest for 20 minutes, use a word like this or okay. It is influenced by what I learned in Vedic meditation from you, but it's not the same thing. And you need a teacher to do it right. You just do.
You need a teacher. I'm hesitating to say for this spiritual transmission,
Mm-hmm.
but you need a teacher for this transmission. Mm-hmm. It's one nervous system to the other, and it's impossible to learn from a book or a video or from hearsay. You know, people come in and they tell me what their idea of what this practice is, or I've had a friend show me, and and you might get some results. Even just closing your eyes, the body rests a little. But when you learn the technique correctly, big difference.
It is big.
And you know, I've taught thousands of people from every walk of life. People you've heard of, absolutely people you've heard of.
When certain famous people are talking about their meditation practice, I can go, they do what I do. I can tell. I can just tell by something they say. One of the biggest things I see in people, and I won't say that I'm just such a perfect detector, but when we meditate together, we come out. So this is a lovely experience I've had with women. We meditate together, and I remember with a bunch of women, we were doing this in a hospital prayer or meditation room, because it was just a space where people can get together and have quiet. And we thought, you never know, it might have a good vibe for everybody in the hospital. But we all said, we came out of meditation, we're all like, I have to pee too. We all go into the ladies' room. We all go to the mirror and wash our hands. We're all looking in the mirror, putting on lipstick. And we looked in the mirror and we just went, we are so beautiful. And then we were like, wait a minute, why are we so beautiful? Like, we're kind of beautiful, but why are we so beautiful? And we realized our word for it was meditation eyes. It just makes your eyes very bright. Uh-huh. You can tell when somebody's just come out.
Windows of the soul.
It's very beautiful. Mm-hmm. Very flattering. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of people report that they just seem to be in the right place at the right time, and things fall into place for them, and they sometimes they worry about it, like how could things be going so easily for me? Is this okay? My teacher would say, do less and accomplish more. When we're just more focused, and we have more clarity, and we have more support from the environment, things just happen, despite the fact that some old tape might be rolling in our head. Oh Lord, this is going to be a terrible day. Boom. Oh, here's what a student said to me quite a long time ago. I feel like there's a gentle conspiracy on nature's part to make me happy. Isn't that great?
That sounds right.
Hmm.
That sounds right. And it's the opposite of how life used to feel.
It's possible to snap out of it, snap out of this mental constraint, get out of these emotional handcuffs. The healing that we get when we do this practice is physical. It's on every level, but it's physical too. There can be physical trauma. And as you've said, I mean, I was dazzled by the experiences you had. And people do report just tremendous healing.
Those are the things that sound dazzling. Most days it's just it's just bread and butter. It's just, and it's just doing it regularly. And that's something I get asked a lot. They say, well, I didn't do it today because today was going fine. And maybe you could talk about why it's every day, twice a day, and not just when we're feeling bad. And then I want to talk about feeling bad, but why is it every day?
Well, just think about the things that you do for yourself on a regular basis. Think of this as part of your daily mental hygiene. Our civilization is not set up for people to go take a 20-minute break. But think about all the time you waste online, looking for some experience that's going to make you happy. Increasingly, meditation is mainstream. You feel so good when you're done. Think about walking through a waterfall on Maui and how refreshing it is. It is a 20-minute vacation. We just unplug. All the systems of the body go on break. The mind takes a break. And then we come back out, we feel more dynamic and vital and correct and clear. And people can make excuses for not doing it regularly, but I always encourage people to do it twice a day. I wouldn't dream of skipping. If I miss a meditation or it's like late in the afternoon, it looks like, going to be here at the hospital for a while, I don't know, or I'm driving, I think, okay, too bad. But I turn into a vampire if I don't get that second meditation. It's because the brain secretes certain chemicals that feel good. All those stress hormones drop when we're meditating. Let me put my glasses on and see what I wrote. So our plasma cortisol levels drop between 30 and 40% when we're meditating. When we sleep, these stress hormones drop by about 10%. But these stress levels and hormone levels stay low. All these chemical reactions related to constant stress. We slough off this stress more readily. We don't identify with the stress as much as we once would. And we don't get bent out of shape by current events, This is happening, oh dear. But we don't identify with it as strongly.
Yeah, nor the past, nor our own past.
The conditioning of the past.
But I wanted to say, because a lot of people who first arrive on my channel, they're in a lot of distress. They're going through a lot. They have never been given anything that helps manage that. Like I was when I came to this, they're feeling desperate to feel better. And I can't say enough about what it meant in my life and my hope for the future to have a way through of learning both the writing and then the meditation together, that I always had a way to, there was like a pressure relief valve. No matter how bad I felt, I could deal with it. And I've had some hard stuff happen since I got all this stuff. Life didn't stop happening. I had deaths in my immediate family, tragic deaths and personal failures and things that were sad and that I was ashamed of, and lost all my money. It's just everything bad in life that has happened. But because I had this, I could just sort of keep having a way to discharge that intense CPTSD reaction. Now, I didn't know that this was treating my, I didn't know what CPTSD was when I learned it. I just knew that I was a very upset person. And I was struggling in ways that were sort of secret to me that nobody seemed to understand. And I felt better and I started functioning better. And it was many years for me to just keep learning about different facets of my own healing that, it comes in waves. I had some EMDR from somebody I met through you, and I had I had a couple mentors like help me relearn like how to have a relationship, how to be a decent person, how to apologize, when do you say thank you. I mean, I was really unschooled in how to be just like a kind and considerate person. And all of this had to be learned. And I had especially poor boundaries around relationships. So all of that had to be relearned. But I could never have even hoped to learn it until I had a relief valve for this, for the hamster thing, for the intensity of CPTSD. Finally, I got a name for it. I learned what it was. I learned the name for it when I read The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, which is a civilization-changing book, I think, and many other contributors to this field. But that was the one that made the light come on, like, that's what I have. And I realized that what I was doing in writing and meditating were treating that. And a lot of the people who are out there treating trauma, they're very, very confined in what they recommend to talk therapy or kinds of talk therapy, or even when they're out of that. Then there are other things, and many people find them helpful: somatic therapy, tapping, lots of things like that. But when it comes to meditation, they seem to be very confined to Buddhist forms of meditation. And it's not the only thing there is. It completely leaves out people like Christians or Muslims who need something more compatible for themselves, which this is, although with that caveat, having had many conversations, for some people, their faith requires that they learn a meditation within their own tradition, but you can still copy the form of this. And that's where my form for this can come in handy for people whose faith requires that they do something within their own. And I'm thinking of, for example, some very Orthodox Catholics who, they will do their meditation a different way through contemplative prayer or using the Jesus prayer. And there are other traditions in the Muslim faith of meditating on sacred passages in scripture. And so people have their ways of doing it. But I would just say, if you have CPTSD, see if you can adapt your meditation to something effortless so that your brain and spirit can heal itself. And so that your higher power can come in and do the work for you, that this effortlessness is what is very distinctive about what I learned in Vedic meditation. So not everybody has to do it the Vedic way, and everybody must find their way through.
That's right.
Through what works for them. My YouTube channel is a place where many people share a variety of experiences, and they'll share about that. And I'm sure we'll hear from people about objections they have, or reasons why this isn't for them. And I just say, well, bless you on finding what works for you. That's fine. I don't want to be hard sell about this. But that said, it is my pleasure to say, I'm going to put a link. Talk to my teacher if you like. I believe in my teacher. I believe in what he taught me, and it's helped me a lot.
Thank you. I teach people this practice because I'm selfish. I want to live in a better world. I want to relate to people that are, may I say happy, joyous, and free? Is that the expression? Mm-hmm. Simple, happy, joyous, and free. It just, when we're not stressed out and worn out, life is simpler. We don't need any more complexity in our life.
Your website is quietpathmeditation.com. That is correct.
There'll be a registration and pay page, and then I'll be conducting interviews with people, and then it's a 4-step process, 4 lessons over 4 days, and then unlimited follow-up through the years. And it's such a gas to watch people change and grow as they do this practice. I'm just astonished what happens to people. Yeah.
Okay. And just, this is not, I do not get compensated for this recommendation. This is not an affiliate arrangement, just a sincere sharing of something that helped me.
So I should pay people to learn to meditate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Anna. I'm so grateful I'm able to do this in this life. Yeah, I'm very grateful.
I have not been complete. I didn't feel like I was ever able to thank you properly for all you've done for me. Teaching me meditation, picking me up from the hospital, and being a lovely and accepting and supportive friend for all these years. Thank you. I just love you so much.
I love you, Anna. Thank you. When we're not stressed out and worn out, we just, our innate loving nature comes out. We want to help. We want to give, right? I think so.